I'm going to address the topic of pelvic organ prolapse. I know it's kind of an uncomfortable one maybe to talk about, but I am really excited to open up this topic of conversation because every single female needs to understand what I'm going to talk about, regardless of whether they are pregnant yet, whether you're postpartum, whether you're a fitness professional that trains female clients, any female clients. This is something that is not talked about enough. And if you don't know me, I'm Erica Zeal, creator of the Core Rehab program, Knocked Up Fitness Programming, and my new pre-postnatal instructor course. So where do I even start on this topic? And if you have any questions, please speak up and ask. I'll do my best to answer, and then I can check back in later too if you're not watching it live. But first off, pelvic organ prolapse, which is for a female, right, when either your bladder, your uterus, or your intestines protrude out of your pelvic floor, okay? So this, again, it's something that it's not the most comfortable thing to talk about, right? But it is something that I will address at some point with every single female client that I work with because it's that important. It is something that I feel like it is the silent thing going on in the world of women. And for instance, here's a common conversation that goes on. So we can get into the incontinence topic. And I get so many women that will tell me, well, I just thought that was normal. And I'll ask, we'll talk about it with my prenatal clients, postpartum clients, women beyond. This is something that really can also affect, especially if you're a fitness professional and you work with women in their 50s and 60s and beyond, where maybe it's not until then that they start to have more symptoms or actually have prolapsing issues. And there's so many variables of prolapsing, okay? But where I was going with that, and this is a normal conversation that goes on, is I will ask, bring it up with one of my clients or someone that I'm working with online, and she'll say, well, yeah, I was going to this workout class and it didn't feel comfortable for me to jump rope or do some sort of jumping exercise because every time I would jump, it would feel like I was going to pee my pants, or she would a little bit. And she's like, then I would ask the other women and they're like, oh, that's just normal. That's what in the world, it seems as though a lot of women think it's normal to have incontinence issues, especially, beyond having kids. It may be a little bit in those initial weeks postpartum, and I'm talking in the first handful of weeks. That's it. That is the only thing we can even consider as being a little bit of normal when it comes to talking about incontinence, which can also come, if there's incontinence, it could mean that there is prolapsing. There's so many variables, but this is where I just want to get this conversation going so you can be a little bit more aware of it. Awareness is the first step because so many women find out too late. They find out when they've already done a lot of damage to their pelvic floor, which could have been potentially prevented, and that's the side that I'm on. I teach prevention because we can prevent, at least really work towards preventing pelvic organ dysfunction of some sort, whether that's true prolapsing, whether that's incontinence, whether it's just having a weak pelvic floor, which maybe right now isn't causing any issues or symptoms, but down the road, that's where we can start to see symptoms start to come up. So I'm going to address the prenatal realm for a second. So when it comes to exercise during pregnancy, which is what I love to teach, and I teach a lot of it, I have lots of workouts, but I specialize in working with deep core. Okay, and strengthening your deep core during pregnancy is super, super important. And yes, you can do so much to work to strengthen your deep core properly and safely while you are pregnant. One big guideline to know if you're doing an exercise while you're pregnant is that you should or should not be doing is if you notice any pressure on your pelvic floor, as far as if you feel heavy pressure, if you feel pain, if you feel any leaking, any incontinence happening within an exercise that you're doing while you are pregnant or really any other time, that is an exercise you should not be doing. Okay, that's a really easy way to determine if you're doing the right exercises or not, for one. Okay, is if you're having any of those symptoms, telltale signs. If you are having those, that doesn't mean you should stop exercising, but let's rethink what we are doing for our exercise, okay? And this is where what I teach a lot in my pre-postnatal course, which is now available online. But the biggest thing is I talk about variables, because there's such a variety of, we're all different, right? Everybody's bodies are so different. And so we can't just say, well, she can go and do box jumps and she's running, why can't I, right? We need to change our mindset. Maybe she shouldn't be doing those box jumps. Maybe she shouldn't be running, but she's doing it, okay? And we can't always let social media, decide what it is safe or not safe. We also have to learn to listen to our body. Okay? Because again, there's a lot of great information out there. There's also some not great information. And my biggest thing, again, I just want to bring some awareness. So if you have some questions, please ask. But when it comes to exercising, we have got to really start thinking about, are the exercises that we are choosing, are they productive for our body? Are they actually making our body stronger? Not just making us look better, okay? You can, that's more through nutrition as in many aspects anyway, right? So with with trying to understand what exercises are good or not good, is that if you cannot feel your deep core properly or at all, or you feel pain in your back and your neck and everything kind of hurts, then we need to take a step back and rethink about what exercises we're doing. Because number one, it has to be effective for your pelvic floor. During pregnancy, think about it. Your baby is sitting on your pelvic floor. Let's envision this is your pelvic floor here. The baby is already pushing down weight on your pelvic floor. So it's stressing your pelvic floor a little bit more, making it work a little bit harder. Does that mean that you need a stronger pelvic floor? Maybe, maybe not. You can also have too strong of a pelvic floor, and if we tend to grip in the pelvic floor muscles, that can also cause incontinence and other issues now or down the road as well. So we have to find this happy balance of strengthening the deep core, but also not overly strengthening the deep core. Okay, so again, there's so many variables. I wish I had an exact answer for everybody, but I want to bring some awareness to recognizing whether you're on the right path with the exercises you're choosing. And one thing that comes up a lot with, I get a lot of questions from moms about running during pregnancy and again, postpartum. Okay, well, can you run? Maybe, maybe not. Does it feel good for your body? Number one. Well, actually, before that, let's ask, do you pee your pants when you run? Or whether you're pregnant or postpartum. If you do, then we need to take a step back and think about, okay, well, my body's not quite ready for it. And if we stress our body too much, too long, that's again where we could be actually causing more damage to the pelvic floor, potentially causing prolapsing symptoms and issues. And again, there's so many variables of prolapsing, right? There's the full extreme of things actually falling all the way out, which happens. And I say that to women and they're like, no way, that really doesn't happen. And I'm like, yes way, it really happens. And it's not talked about. And it's not the most comfortable thing for me to talk about either. But I realize that if I don't talk about it, the women that I come across, they don't know about it, right? And I see women that are after the fact come to me and I'm just like, oh, I wish I could have worked with you before, because we could have done some work. And they didn't go to, even you could go see a pelvic floor or women's health physical therapist as well, obviously, because they really can help you from tactile cueing and all of that and really work more the manual side of it. So that is something I recommend if you know that you do have prolapsing issues or prolapsing symptoms, or you really have no clue if you're feeling your pelvic floor correctly, because it is something that takes time, that I feel like evolves as we become more aware of our body and what's going on. But the biggest thing is, and this also falls in line with instructors, and I don't care if you're a male or a female instructor, if you are working with, or if you have a trainer as well that, is working with you and they're creating programming, goes for prenatal, postpartum, moms, whether you're a mom, whether you're a fitness professional, it doesn't matter, whether you know a fitness professional, this is something that needs to be out more in the fitness industry and being taught, because it's not. And I come across way too many women. Why do you think I created my core rehab program? The whole reason I even created that thing was because it needed to be out here. I moved from Southern California back to Iowa in the Midwest, and I had so many new clients coming to me left and right that were like, well, I just have to live with it, live with the incontinence, have to live with the diastasis, or I have to have surgery to fix both. And I'm like, no, there's so many things we can do to prevent. Number one, we have to work on prevention. If we can at all prevent these things from happening, clearly that's the easiest. Then we don't have to talk about surgery, and we don't have to worry about symptoms and things like that. You don't have to be concerned about going and jumping on the trampoline with your kids once your baby's 5 years old and worrying about peeing your pants. That should not happen. Okay? And if it is, I want you to know that there are things that we can do. And that's why when we really take a step back and evaluate whether, again, you're a fitness professional and working with female clients, which most do, right, at some realm or another, whether you do not have to specialize with prenatal at all, but at some point, a majority of females will have a baby and or have, right? And it's something that's not talked about. It's not the most comfortable thing to talk about, but if you can open up that conversation and we start asking the right questions about, do you experience any incontinence type symptoms? And again, it's something that it's not the most comfortable thing to talk about, but it needs to be more mainstream, because if we know those aren't always things that you can just spot, right? She might look like she's doing an amazing job, but she may not be communicating with you, like a lot of women don't, in workout group classes. They're telling the woman next to her, but they're not telling the male trainer, like, hey, I don't want to jump rope because every time I do, I pee my pants. And that's not comfortable, right? So instead, let's bring this about. Let's talk about it. If you work with a trainer and this is happening, we need to open up conversation about, well, what can you be doing to work on helping to better your core so that at some point down the road, we can be decreasing these symptoms to eventually, hopefully, not having them at all. And sometimes it does mean we have to reach out and go to a physical therapist who specializes in women's health or a pelvic floor specialist, which I always recommend, because they get to work with you a little more intimately and understand what's going on in that area of the body. But I also want you to know there's so much that we can do through movement, and that's exactly what I teach and why I'm so crazy passionate about it. I don't speak up as much about it, but you're going to start hearing a lot more from me. So I want you to, if this is something that is a concern of yours, bring it up. If you with an instructor, feel free to ask me. I'm happy to lead you in the right direction. This is why in all my programming, I talk about the deep core, and that's my most important thing that I want you to learn, because when you understand how to properly strengthen your deep core, even if you don't get it right away, that's okay, because it takes time. I can tell you honestly, the way I feel my deep core now is not the way I felt it 5 years ago when I had my third baby. It's evolved through a big part of knowledge, right? And when I look back, when I had my oldest she's 10 years old. She's 10 now. It's crazy. I have a 10-year-old. But when she was born 10 years ago, and I was in the prenatal, postnatal realm, I don't know that I even knew what the word prolapse was. And I took prenatal training, and I didn't know what that word meant. And a decade later, it's like, okay, I'm talking with all my clients about it, or at least I talk more pelvic floor, but I'm gonna talk prolapse because it gets people's attention, right? Because it's real and it happens. And it is a concern that everyone needs to be aware of, because there is so much prevention that we can do, because OBs are not telling their clients or their patients what you can and cannot do. They either say, yeah, go ahead, what does that mean? Or I don't know, or they tell you no. But they don't give you specifics. And that's why, again, my training program, it's out there now because I want to have more instructors that really understand these variables across the board of why we need to be having women strengthen their deep core before they even are thinking about getting pregnant, obviously doing it while you are pregnant, during pregnancy, and then the importance of allowing the body to recover postpartum, okay? Going and wanting to go to a Get Your Body Back boot camp when you're 6 weeks postpartum, even 6 months, even a year postpartum, but you have never been taught. And it's not that you don't know, it's that it's not been taught. And I teach that, okay? Because it needs to be taught. Every instructor should teach this, which is why my course is out there now. But if you have never taken a step back to really understand what's going on with my core, how does my pelvic floor and transverse abdominals work together, then maybe we need to be thinking about doing burpees and crazy intense boot camp exercises if we're not feeling it properly in our core. And when I say core, I'm talking from your hips to your shoulders. I'm not just talking about your abs. It's different. You're gonna have strong abs, which again, if your abs are overly strong and you've had a baby or two, there may be a chance you have some diastasis recti, abdominal separation, right? That's kind of a whole other topic, but they do go hand in hand because there's all this amazing fascia that runs through our body and in our abdominal wall. So there's so much that we can do through movement, through proper stimulation with breath, okay? And so if this is something that if you feel like you are completely lost with how to strengthen your deep core and you're pregnant, I teach that in my Knocked Up Fitness membership. If you are postpartum and beyond, even if you're 15 years postpartum. I know once postpartum, always postpartum. I know women don't really like to hear that because most will say to me, oh, well, I'm not postpartum and I have a 2-year-old. I'm like, no, you're postpartum. Once you've had a baby, your body is always postpartum. And when it comes to working with instructors, I want instructors to really understand that, because even if you've had a baby 10 years ago, but the body's never been rehabbed in a sense, especially from that core, well, your pelvis is probably still in that posterior tilt from pregnancy. Your posture still probably has those pregnancy posture to it, right? And we still have to work to rebalance that, okay? No matter how long it's been since you've had your last baby. And so that's what my core rehab program is for. It's launching, or it's opening again May 1st. So I'll be talking a lot more about those, answering questions about the diastasis, the core, back pain, all of that. And if you're an instructor, my pre-postnatal exercise specialist course is available online. CECs will be coming. These things have been submitted. It takes time to get those back. So please, please, please help share this. I really want to help getting more conversation about the pelvic floor, diastasis, prolapse specifically, which I wanted to bring more awareness about today. And I'll hop back on here down maybe next week, and we'll after have probably a lot of questions. So be sure to post your questions, and I can't wait to see you guys next time. Have a great day.